Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what looks to be episode number 8 of Fridays with Steve. We've got some special content for us this morning as we're recording this. We're going to talk about Teams Phone. We're going to talk about meetings. And we're going to talk a little bit about rooms as well. The oh my part, you'll have to judge for yourself. But I'm going to be joined midway through today by Jaime Waterfield from 8x8. And Jamie's a leader and an expert over on the 8x8 side. It's a great partner of ours when it comes to this space. And so super excited to have her join us and answer a few questions and talk a little bit about how 8x8 can help us take you, the customer, kind of to the next level when it comes to phones and calling. And so this is part of our NCE, or our sort of licensing streak that we've been on. And so some of the focus again will be on, licensing, calling plans. I mentioned the partnership with 8x8. And so, the services that they bring to the table to really light up the phone system. I'll also talk a little bit about Teams meetings and rooms, specifically a licensing change that happened a couple of months ago that's fairly impactful out there in the world, and I want to make sure that you have all the best information. And so, like we've been doing, I want you to walk away with a few things. Really a better understanding of the landscape. I'll try and talk about it in a way that's very approachable, sort of easy to understand, but then give you the opportunity for that detailed follow-up with our team, whether you're a managed customer right now, or a customer known to us, or a customer unknown to us, that you'll have those calls to action. I really want you to walk away with a strong sense of where 8x8 plays in this space as well. This is one of those spaces where there are options from 5 seats to 50,000 seats. And we want to make sure that we bring the right solution to you. And that's why we have that partnership with 8x8. And then, next steps, offer you some calls to action and some things that you can go do. Again, whether you're an existing customer or a customer that's new to us here at Apex. And just real briefly, been around a long time, over 20 years now, headquartered in Southfield, Michigan. But the world has changed, and we service customers and their needs all over the United States. We've even formed some partnerships for outside the United States. We have a strong Canadian partner that helps us with implementations north of the border, and we also just entered into an agreement, so we have the ability to get you your hardware needs around the globe, wherever that may be. I talk about being a gold partner all the time. We're transitioning to the new Microsoft Cloud Partner Program. Already earned our competencies on that side as well. Hundreds of customers, hundreds of successful deployments. And then that last one, we really think about customer satisfaction. We use that as a part of how we metric our organization, how we think about how successful we're being. It might even creep into some pay plans for us, and just making sure it's core to everything we do. And so one of the things that's happened as Teams has grown, as we stayed home for a bit over the last couple of years, and as the technology integration has just become better and better, more and more customers are using Teams as their phones. I know I've worked with a lot of customers where they start out as, hey, it's an internal tool, it's instant messaging, it's files, and then come to the realization that they've got the capability, the latent capability right there within Teams to go ahead and replace a PBX system, augment their calling infrastructure. On the admin side, having it all in one place, having it cloud-based, having just that ease of administration, including the integration with 8x8, is just absolutely phenomenal when it comes to a productivity standpoint, right? I've even had a few customers and a few experiences where, they'll be using Teams and users just go, well, how do I call someone outside the organization, right? It'll start like that. that the users themselves start to assume, well, like, well, I talk to everybody internally on this thing. Why can't I talk to people outside? Or dial in for meetings and things like that. And so what I wanted to spend a little time today is kind of walking you through a little bit of the capability, a little bit of the basics, a little bit of the licensing, and then we'll talk to 8x8 about some advanced things. In the last two organizations I've been in, including here at Apex, we're fully on board with Teams Phone. We don't have additional providers, additional infrastructure, additional contracts, because we were small businesses. We were born in the cloud businesses, lots of remote workers and things like that. And one of the things I always challenge customers to do is to look at the list that's in Teams Phone, and it's always changing. I'm sure this is already out of date, and say, how special are we in this particular installation? Are there going to be places where, you've got really, really edge cases, really, really high intensity uses of your phone infrastructure, and it's beyond what teams or teams with partners can do? Sure, that can happen. But I think for most of us, the challenge is just saying, hey, is that core functionality I need 90, 95, 100% of it available in Teams already out of the box, right? And so I just wanted to share this list and say, think about your footprint, think about your requirements and needs, and say, hey, what really falls outside of this? Simple IVR, got it. Call groups and queues, got it. Toll free and algorithms for routing those inbound sales calls to people based on availability or who hasn't talked to a new customer in a while. Got it, right? And so I think for a lot of customers, their initial take based off of having a specific and a feature-rich PBX system is, well, I need to replace like for like, but oftentimes we find that they're not using the full capability and their core needs are really addressed by phone. And there's some different options when it comes to licensing it, getting on the phone plan. If you've got E5, it's already included. You've got this phone capability within Teams. Then it becomes about the back end, right? It becomes about dial tone. And so, depending on where you're coming from, I'll use terms like dial tone or PSTN or outside calling to sort of mean, all right, I want to talk to somebody outside the organization. I want a 10-digit phone number associated with this person on Teams that rings when someone calls them from the outside. That's what calling plans can light up for you. That's also what 8x8 can light up for you, right? Is saying, hey, we need phone numbers, we need connectivity to the public switched telephone network, and be able to make those calls inside and outside the organization. And so it's relatively simple when it comes to calling with Microsoft Teams. We got to have that Teams phone piece in place, included in E5 or as an add-on. We need those endpoints. I'm coming to you from the same setup I use in Teams, right? I've got great video. I've got speakerphone. Those endpoints, those devices on my endpoint here also serve when someone calls me on the phone, right? And so key piece of the puzzle that Apex can help with is sort of that hardware selection, or making sure that how your users want to use their phone matches what you provide them. I think early on, a lot of the soft phone implementations and a lot of the experiences were subpar because we were using built-in microphones and speakers, right? And so just being conscious of that. Lots of integration. And then we'll talk about 8x8 as a part of how you can really light this up. Microsoft offers calling plans as well. I slimmed down the information here because I'm probably talking to a 100% US audience. Microsoft is a dial tone provider here in the United States and Canada. It's a little lumpy around the world. If I was talking to a customer, in a different nation across the globe, would have to make sure that calling plans are available. There are international features to 196 countries and regions. You also have this pay-as-you-go calling plan. Oftentimes, I really advise customers against this approach, simply because it's not the approach they have now, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And as we have sort of these inflection points with technology, oftentimes there's this natural sort of desire to say, oh, well, if I do all this extra work, I can save, 7 cents a month. And oftentimes the complexity and the management might outweigh any cost savings that are there. And so really want to replace sort of like for like, if people pick up the phone and they can call anywhere, domestic or internationally, hey, let's set up that same experience for them when it comes to the experience they're going to have going forward using Teams Phone. Pretty simple, right? Teams client, you're connected to the Microsoft Cloud using Teams Phone, and with the calling plan, boom, you're out to the PSTN network. You've got dial tone, you've got inbound calling, you've got outbound calling, and all of those things light up. The administration of this is right within Teams admin, and it has all of those kinds of voice expected features, porting numbers, call quality analytics, those kinds of things that you can manage. It's an interesting world for me now. In my first job in IT, the voice guys sat on the 5th floor, and us oddball client server Microsoft guys sat on the 25th floor, and never the two shall meet, right? There's really been a collapse in the infrastructure, the administration, the ease of use on the customer side or on the end user side as well, that has really impacted all of us. And so when you think about what you need to make for this experience, Teams Phone, you have those pieces that are listed here or brought to the table. Audio conferencing is the piece that gives you those things like toll-free numbers to dial into meetings, people being able to join via phone, and being able to dial out from a meeting. And so audio conferencing oftentimes is like the next step or the first thing users notice. They start having a ton of Teams meetings. All of a sudden it's like, well, hey, but Sue isn't on a Teams endpoint right now. She needs to dial in, and that's not available, right? And that's where we get into that audio conferencing discussion. And then we get into the calling plan discussion to say, hey, we need to light up emergency calling and assigning phone numbers and inbound and outbound calling, domestic and international. Really that PBX replacement and sort of stacking these things on top of each other. Frankly, the end user oftentimes is the biggest driver of this. As they get immersed in Teams Phone, as they take, collaboration, elevate it to an audio call or a video call with their peers, all of a sudden they want to do it with the rest of the world as well. And when I say international, 196 countries around the world, I think right now, here's the list of where you can't go. To be honest, there were a couple of things on this list. I don't know where Kiribati is, but you're certainly going to want to check and make sure that there aren't requirements or footprints internationally, specifically when it comes to calling plans. And that's why I wanted to bring Jaime into the conversation, right? So Microsoft provides these calling plans, provides a lot of core functionality, but Apex is partnered with 8x8. And the reason we've partnered with 8x8 is they bring some additional functionalities, some global footprint kinds of things to the table. So, hey, Jaime, thanks for joining me today and representing all the fine folks over at 8x8.
Great. Yes, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what really starts the 8x8 conversation? So I walked through phone and calling plans and some of the basics, but I know we've got a number of customers that are, going beyond that and working with Apex and 8x8 for their calling needs. What are some of those triggers that cause that conversation to happen?
Yeah, I mean, when direct routing was first introduced by Microsoft, there were a few, a handful of really specific scenarios. And as we've expanded into replacing the contact center, I think some additional scenarios have been added. But your common ones are, I've got a lot of analog or DECT devices or intercom that I need. So it's very industry specific. We find this a lot in manufacturing. We find this a lot in retail. When it's a device here and there, the Microsoft approach is very reasonable. It starts to break down from a scale standpoint. If I'm talking, 50 of these types devices at multiple locations across the globe, right? So that's a very, traditionally specific industry and enterprise global challenge, but a very real one for a lot of our customers. So that's probably the most common of where direct routing started. As we look at business transformation, though, you start to get into these contact center scenarios. And so what we're finding is it's very persona and profile based within the organization. If I'm just looking to replace dial tone, it's like, oh, okay, well, I just need dial tone, right? If I'm transforming and now I start to understand how my users use the phone system, or not necessarily just how they use it today, but how they want to use it going forward, now I start to uncover these scenarios, whether it's a formal call center or an informal, like your IT help desk or your inside sales team, or even your accounts receivable department. So, we can certainly dive into some of those scenarios, but that's where we're seeing the most common conversations take place.
And you mentioned a couple of verticals. You talked about retail and manufacturing. Is there, some specific strengths when it comes to the Teams plus 8x8 solution, both like in those verticals? Are there other verticals that you think about as well? You mentioned contact center, analog devices. Are there things about, their industry domains that you think lend themselves to this more robust 8x8 solution?
Yeah, absolutely. What the theme that I'm hearing the most common right now is when we take a look at where there are these call centers, whether they're inbound or outbound. So again, let's look at an IT help desk or a customer support desk. The biggest challenge and theme right now is around retention, right? Very common theme for a lot of organizations today, right? How do I retain my employees and continue with employee sat? And our platform, our experience as a service, is really built around that employee satisfaction and employee experience and the customer experience. And that comes together in these agent or light contact center scenarios, because you want to help with the performance, helping the employee with performance, giving them a career path, giving them feedback, engaging with them, giving them the right tools to do their job. That helps with the employee experience. And then the return is, as that improves, your customer experience goes up. So working with teams, where 8x8 comes over the top, is adding in the ability to listen in on calls as a supervisor, right? So if you're a new IT help desk individual, and we're onboarding you and I need to do some training, right? I can listen in on your calls. They're recorded. Now I've got that data within the 8x8 infrastructure. We can analyze it. We can put sentiment analysis. I can do coaching analytics and metrics behind it. So now we're talking truly business transformation. And that's where we're seeing a lot of focus of bringing together the power of Teams from a collaboration platform with something like 8x8 to enhance the overall experience.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success, at Apex, both in this solution and with others, really targeting being able to sort of reduce spend and complexity by collapsing solutions, right? Hey, this is built into M365. You don't need that firewall anymore. You don't need that labeling tool. Ironically, though, with dial tone, I get the sense that some customers actually feel better with having sort of back end diversity. Great, I'll use Teams phone, but I like the idea of a different cloud providing the dial tone with some kind of emergency capabilities, some kind, in a world gone mad, maybe I can still get to my phone because 8x8 is a separate cloud. Is that something you've heard from customers as well? I mean, I love pushing that simplicity and that collapsing. Dial tone oftentimes feels different to customers.
Yeah, a lot of companies, voice dial tone is still mission critical. And despite the track record and the investments that Microsoft has made in improving their PBX capabilities as well as the performance. I mean, it's a highly available system. There's still going to be those customers that it's mission critical and I want to know that I have a backup plan, right? It's
Yep.
part of disaster recovery. And so, yes, we often are seeing in our success stories and in customer conversations, those customers, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. I want to know that if something happens, we can still continue to make and receive calls, especially if it's a contact center, most certainly, right? That is their line of business. So we see that. And then when you now introduce that and you think about, okay, well, now I'm introducing a second party. How do I avoid introducing a third, a fourth, a fifth, right? So the other piece of at least 8x8 is we can bring the voice and the contact center in a single platform to at least consolidate vendor from that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even if it's not a traditional contact center, you might have persona needs like a front desk receptionist, or again, a supervisor that has additional analytic needs. And so if we can consolidate that at least all from the 8x8 platform, delivering that through our mix and match licensing, you're not having to plug in all of these niche ISV app solutions into the environment as well.
Yeah, so one last question for you before I let you go. I mean, the overall umbrella for this is a little bit about licensing. As much as I loathe to talk about it, we wanted to spend some time with our customers talking about licensing. You hinted at something, which I think is a really huge differentiator for you guys, which is that persona-based licensing. Hey, we can target what you consume based on what you need, which is a little bit different from other players in the industry. Maybe just tell us real quick a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's a few, I think, really nice benefits of the licensing model, as sexy as licensing can be, right? With 8x8. So first of all, we fully use the Microsoft phone system license, and there's a lot of customers who've invested in E5, but they're not getting the value out of that phone system license because something is holding them up, right? Some capability, maybe it's a timeline thing, maybe it's a maturity, but so we fully leverage that. And then we have our own licensing to bring the features, and that licensing is by persona. So if I'm a supervisor and I need really rich analytics, or I need the ability to monitor your calls, only I need that higher end license. The whole organization doesn't need to be on that. Additionally, your call volume or where you're calling, right? So international licensing, right? If I need to call certain countries, I can get global unlimited for the 3 key people that need that. I could have metered for the person who never calls that, but we want to give them just in case of emergency, you have the ability to, and then you can have unlimited domestic for the rest of your organization. So, it's really intended to be very flexible. And then on the contact center side, the other really key thing that I like is it's concurrent users. So if you have a contact center with shifts, you may have 100 contact center agents, but only 30 on at a time, then you license 30, right? So that helps to reduce that overall total cost of ownership.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage. Well, sorry I made you pay a licensing tax and talk to us a little bit, but it is a differentiator for you guys and is super useful. Thank you for joining us today, Jaime. I'll make sure I call out calls to action to contact Apex, and we can help bring 8x8 to the table for customers.
Look forward to those discussions. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that was great. I really appreciate Jaime joining us. She is an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to really enabling customers when it comes to voice and cloud-based PBX solutions. So I'll spend our last couple of minutes talking about a couple of key things around Teams Rooms. I think most of us know the basics when it comes to rooms. Making those inclusive experiences. We've done some work and some events here around meeting inclusivity, meeting equity. Really want to make it easy to use, get those tables off the table, use Teams to its fullest, have scenarios for sort of those different spaces, and then have it fit in with your management approach, right? And when it comes to, these different spaces, shared collaboration, whether it's Surface Hub, or there's even some creative solutions we can bring to the table from our partners, Samsung and Logitech, for sort of that roll in, roll out device, throw a speaker on the table and let's collaborate, right? Really, really nice solution when it comes to these collaborative spaces, and the flexibility. It also gets you out of the AV business. There's some value in avoiding conduit in walls and ceiling runs. Great solutions for small conference rooms, small to medium conference rooms, whiteboards. Again, calling out Logi and the work they've done with content capture cameras. We just got our first one in the office and absolutely love it. It's in our service delivery area, and they can use it to collaborate. 3 people working on a whiteboard locally and a couple of people engaged with the whiteboard remotely. And then there are the large solutions as well, more modular, more custom design, perhaps even integration with existing, systems like from Crestron, in ceiling audio and mics and different approaches to audio and video. And so, we have the ability to design those systems as well, and really bring them to bear for customers. The thing I wanted to call out is the licensing sort of paradigm for Teams rooms really shifted earlier this year. There used to be this standard and premium sort of dichotomy, with premium having managed services from Microsoft. I think for whatever the real reason is, my take on it is that, Microsoft has never really been a people scale business. And so they want to instead try and capture those kinds of advanced functionality in software, right? Microsoft is at its core a software company. And so they've shifted to this basic and pro dichotomy. And I'll talk a little bit about basic and pro. Here are the real high level kind of takes. Basic is basically an OEM license or a license that comes with the device, so you can light it up without any additional investment. It's got some limits to it though, both from device count as well as capability. And then the pro, it's basically like buying your room a seat of Teams, right? You're getting that room some advanced capability. And so I mentioned basic, small and medium-sized businesses just starting out maybe on your journey. It's 25 meeting rooms or less, which I think to a lot of us sounds like a lot, right? And I don't think the most compelling, decision-making criteria for basic versus pro is whether or not you have 25 rooms. I think there's lots of other things that should come to the surface when you talk about making that decision. Comes on the device, ready to go when you plug it in. Teams Rooms Pro, that's where we try and take our customers to. It has additional capability, additional management. It gives you the ability to grow. It's going to incorporate the other devices in the room as well, and is really future-proofing. Honestly, our approach is we start all of our customers at this pro, and it's sort of like a prove me wrong kind of scenario, because I think when most of our customers see the features, see the additional things that they can do, it really, really resonates with them. Got a slide here, maybe take a picture or follow up afterwards with some good bullet points. The one I wanted to get to though was this one, right? Which is, you'll see, I'm just double checking. I don't think there's a line item for over 25 devices, right? So that one's already out there. We kind of mentioned it. This is that feature piece, right? This is the, hey, with basic, yes, you can do the basic stuff. You can get in a meeting. You can share and view the content types. You have the video gallery with layout options and software updates and so forth. And you can do Teams admin and inventory, but just in that device management piece. And this is part of the reason we really steer our customers towards this, is whether it's their IT team or whether it's professional or managed services from Apex. This is where we need to be to get that advanced functionality to get in there and help you, right? There's also things around like multi-camera support and pan tilt zoom controls. Some of the advanced features, the AI features around counting people and windows and naming them and transcripts. All of those kinds of things come with that pro license. It's really where we want to see or help our customers see the value and really realize that this is where they need to be when it comes to those rooms devices. Even if you've only got 1 or 5 of these, that the capability itself is the compelling piece, not just the basic versus or the 25 rooms restriction being the most compelling. And so just like we ended the last one, calls to action, this is taken directly from our website, sort of making the pitch for how we can help. We have great partnerships with folks like 8x8, as well as on the back end, to really provide you, the simplified billing, managing these licenses, managing your licensing experience. There's been some innovation when it comes to renewals and some of the things we can help you do to just make life easier in this space and just require you not to be an expert, right? We've got folks on our team that are experts in this stuff, right? We're doing it across multiple customers and can bring that experience to the table for you if you engage. And so speaking of engaging, what are those next steps, right? So if you're an existing customer, reach out to your account executive. Let's get a meeting set up to talk about licensing, CSP kinds of needs or things specific to phone and 8x8. I'm sure you loved what you heard about the 8x8 solution. In addition to the Microsoft calling plans, we can help bring all of that to the table. If you're not currently a customer and are interested in talking to someone, just reach out to sales@apexdigital.com, or like I always say, drop me a note, sthompson@apexdigital.com. I do all my own email. I don't think I'll ever allow someone to be in my inbox or book a flight for me. Just not how I'm wired, right? So I'm here at the other end of that. Would love to talk to you and see how we can help. Our team has done a great job of capitalizing on the intellectual property, on our experiences from our customers, and generating things like ebooks and infographics, all available on our website. So if you're an existing customer, reach out to your AE. If you're new to Apex, just reach out to sales or reach out to me directly, and let's get engaged. Let's bring voice and meetings to the table, including our key partnership with 8x8. So thanks again to Jaime Waterfield. Great hearing from the excellent team at 8x8 and how they help us deliver a complete solution in the voice space. Thank you for joining us today. Episode 8, Fridays with Steve. Something tells me there'll be an episode 9, so we'll see you next time.